There's something about the way chrome catches the last light of day, the way it holds onto memories like amber holds insects from another time. This is a 1973 Buick Riviera, the final chapter of one of America's boldest automotive dreams. A weathered hand gently wipes dust from the hood. The chrome gleams like liquid gold, revealing deep paint underneath that seems to hold decades of stories. In 1973, America was changing. The world was changing. But for one last glorious year, you could still walk into a Buick dealership and drive home with 455 cubic inches of pure American thunder wrapped in the most controversial shape Detroit had ever dared to build. The owner slides into the driver's seat. The interior is a time capsule, wood-grain dashboard, thick vinyl seats that smell of decades and dreams. A key turns. The 455 V8 rumbles to life with that distinctive lazy growl that only big American engines could make. This is the story of the last boat-tail Riviera, but more than that, it's the story of us, of who we were when the highways stretched endless before us, when gas was 39 cents a gallon, and when American cars were built like rolling living rooms designed to devour miles in comfort and style. Picture this, it's 1963. John F. Kennedy is president, the Beatles haven't arrived yet, and in the boardrooms of General Motors, executives are looking at Ford's Thunderbird with a mixture of respect and envy. The T-Bird had created something new, the personal luxury car, a vehicle that wasn't quite a sports car, wasn't quite a family sedan, but something altogether more sophisticated. Enter Bill Mitchell, GM's legendary design chief. Mitchell had spent time studying European Grand Tourers, those sleek, powerful machines that whispered sophistication rather than shouting it. But he was also deeply influenced by something uniquely American, the classic boat-tail speedsters of the 1930s, those Auburn speedsters and Cord roadsters that looked like they were carved from wind itself. The Riviera nameplate itself spoke to dreams of leisure, of cruising along coastal highways with someone special beside you. It wasn't just transportation, it was aspiration made manifest in steel and chrome. For its first generation, the Riviera succeeded brilliantly, establishing Buick as a serious player in the luxury coupe market. But Mitchell wasn't finished dreaming. By the late 1960s, he was sketching something bolder, more dramatic, something that would make every other car on the road look conservative by comparison. And then came 1971. The automotive press called it shocking. Conservative buyers called it outrageous. Teenagers called it the coolest thing they'd ever seen. The boat-tail Riviera had arrived, and American highways would never look quite the same. That rear window, curved and dramatic, wrapping around the car like a glass waterfall. Those fender lines that seemed to flow like liquid metal. This wasn't just automotive design. This was automotive sculpture. Bill Mitchell had taken his inspiration from those classic 1930s speedsters and filtered it through space-age optimism and pure American audacity. But the boat-tail wasn't just about looks. Step inside and you entered a world of deep carpeting, genuine wood grain, and gauges that looked like they belonged in a fighter jet. This was luxury, American style, not subtle, not understated, but warm and enveloping and completely confident in its own skin. By 1973, the boat-tail had evolved. The most radical elements were softened slightly. The rear window wasn't quite as dramatic, the lines were refined rather than revolutionary. But make no mistake, this was still the boldest thing in any Buick showroom, and probably the most distinctive car on most American streets. Pop the hood of a 1973 Riviera, and you're looking at the heart of American automotive muscle, the Buick 455. 7.5 liters of cast iron and steel, designed not for racing glory, but for something perhaps more impressive, effortless, endless torque. Now, 1973 was a transitional year. New emissions regulations meant lower compression ratios and different power ratings. On paper, the 455 made about 250 horsepower, but those numbers don't tell the whole story. What they don't capture is the 35 to 390 pound-feet of torque that hit like a gentle tsunami every time you press the accelerator. This wasn't neck-snapping acceleration. This was something more civilized, more mature. Press the gas pedal, and the big Buick would simply gather its skirts and surge forward with the confidence of a luxury liner leaving port. The TH400 automatic transmission would kick down with a barely perceptible shudder, and suddenly you were doing 70 without even realizing it. The 455 was designed for the American highway experience. It was built for crossing Texas in August with the air conditioning running full blast. It was engineered for pulling a boat to the lake on weekends. It was tuned for that moment when you're running late for dinner and you need to make up time on the interstate. And the big Buick would simply nod and deliver. No drama, no fuss, just smooth, relentless power. Climb behind the wheel of a 1973 Riviera, and you're not just driving a car, you're piloting a piece of American optimism. The door closes with that solid thunk that only comes from thick steel and proper engineering. Your hand finds the steering wheel, large, comfortable, designed for long distances rather than quick reflexes. Turn the key, and that 455 settles into its characteristic idle. Not the aggressive bark of a muscle car, but the confident rumble of an engine that knows it has nothing to prove. The whole car seems to breathe with each exhaust pulse, a gentle vibration that reminds you there's serious power waiting under that long, elegant hood. Pull away from the curb, and the Riviera moves with the stately grace of a yacht leaving harbor. The steering is light but authoritative. This was the era before power steering became numb and disconnected. You can feel the road through your fingertips, but it's filtered through layers of engineering designed to smooth out the harsh realities of American pavement. On the highway, the Riviera truly comes alive. At 60 miles per hour, the engine is barely working, turning just over 2,000 RPM and ready to deliver wave after wave of torque whenever you need it. The ride is supremely comfortable, soft enough to isolate you from road imperfections, but controlled enough that you never feel disconnected from the driving experience. Roll down the windows on a summer evening, and you're transported back to an era when driving was about the journey as much as the destination. The sound of the wind mixing with that lazy V8 rumble, the smell of vinyl warming in the sun, the way the hood stretches out before you like the deck of a ship. This is what driving used to feel like when cars were still romantic. To understand the 1973 Riviera, you have to understand the America it was born into. This was still the era of full-service gas stations, where attendants would fill your tank, check your oil, and clean your windshield with a smile. It was a time when AM radio ruled the airwaves, playing everything from Carole King to the Allman Brothers, from Marvin Gaye to Charlie Rich. Picture yourself driving this Riviera down Main Street in any American town in 1973. Past the local drive-in where teenagers gather on weekend nights, their own cars, Camaros and Mustangs and Chevelle, parked in neat rows under the neon lights. The Riviera might not have been the fastest car there, but it was certainly the most sophisticated, the most grown-up. This was the car for the successful businessman, the doctor, the lawyer, professionals who had worked hard and wanted something that reflected their achievement without being ostentatious about it. It was also the car for the cool uncle, the one who took you for rides and let you change the radio station, who understood that sometimes a teenager needed to feel what real luxury was like. Family vacations were different then. Loading up the Riviera meant packing the massive trunk with suitcases, coolers, and road atlases. It meant planning routes through scenic highways, stopping at roadside diners with names like Mom's Kitchen and the Blue Moon Cafe. The Riviera's bench seat could accommodate 3 adults in reasonable comfort, and the smooth ride meant that even the longest days on the road were bearable. This was also the era of the Sunday drive, a concept that seems almost quaint today. Families would pile into cars like the Riviera just to drive, to see the countryside, to visit relatives in the next county. The journey was the destination, and cars like the Riviera made those journeys memorable. But even as the 1973 Riviera rolled off the assembly line in Linden, New Jersey, change was coming. The oil crisis was just around the corner. New safety regulations were reshaping automotive design. The era of big, powerful, unapologetically American cars was drawing to a close. The boat-tail Riviera represented the last gasp of automotive optimism before reality set in. After 1973, the Riviera would be redesigned with smaller dimensions, less dramatic styling, and engines that prioritized fuel economy over raw power. The world was becoming more practical, more concerned with efficiency than emotion. In many ways, the 1973 Riviera was the end of automotive adolescence. The last car designed when Detroit still believed that bigger was better, that style mattered more than practicality, that Americans wanted their cars to make statements rather than just provide transportation. Those massive chrome bumpers, mandated by new federal safety standards, were like a period at the end of a sentence. They were functional, necessary, but they also symbolized the end of an era when automotive design was driven by pure aesthetic vision rather than regulatory compliance. Today, more than 50 years later, the 1973 Riviera occupies a special place in automotive history. Those controversial boat-tail lines that seemed so radical in their time now look prophetic, ahead of their time in ways that few people appreciated back then. Collectors have discovered what enthusiasts knew all along, that the boat-tail Riviera, especially the refined 1973 model, represents something unique in American automotive design. These cars are rising in value not just because they're rare, but because they represent a specific moment in American culture when we still believed in the romance of the automobile. Modern restorers are finding new ways to appreciate these cars, updating them with contemporary technology while preserving their essential character. Fuel injection systems make the 455 more reliable and efficient. Modern suspensions improve the handling without sacrificing the comfortable ride. Air conditioning systems keep the interior cool during summer cruise nights. But perhaps most importantly, the 1973 Riviera reminds us of what we've lost. In our rush toward efficiency and practicality, we've forgotten that cars can be emotional objects, that they can carry our dreams and memories in ways that purely rational transportation never could. The sun has fully set now, and our 1973 Riviera sits quietly under the streetlight where we found it. The chrome still glows with that warm golden light, but now it's mixed with the cool blue of evening. The 455 idles patiently, its exhaust creating small puffs of vapor in the cooling air. This car has seen America change. It's witnessed the end of the muscle car era, the rise of fuel efficiency, the transformation of the automobile from object of desire to appliance of necessity. But it endures, carrying it the memories of a time when cars were built to stir the soul as much as to transport the body. In the gentle rumble of that big V8, you can still hear the echo of American highways in the 1970s, the sound of freedom, of possibility, of a nation still young enough to believe that the next mile might bring something wonderful. The 1973 Buick Riviera was the last boat tail, the final chapter of one of Detroit's boldest experiments. But more than that, it was a rolling reminder of who we were when we still believed that cars could be poetry written in steel and chrome, when we understood that sometimes the journey really was more important than the destination. The engine settles into its nighttime idle, content to wait for the next adventure, because that's what cars like this were built for, not just to get you where you're going, but to make you remember why you wanted to go there in the first place.